The Fantastic Four: First Steps is out in theaters, latest film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This was directed by Matt Shakman, who previously made WandaVision, lots of episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and worked on a number of other television projects over the years. This stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, Joseph Quinn, Ralph Ineson, Julia Garner, Natasha Lyonne, and Paul Walter Hauser. It is the fourth iteration of the classic comic book superhero team being brought to the big screen. First, there was an unreleased 1994 movie, which by all accounts was bad. Then the two movies from 2005 and 2007, which were terrible. And finally, a 2015 version, which was perhaps the worst of them all. So the big question is, how's this one? And the answer is, it's actually pretty good. I think how good depends on how generous you want to be with it. Because I think it does have flaws and it's not just straight up a great movie, but it is a solid Marvel film. But let's start with the basic setup. Crucially, this is not an origin story. In the opening scenes, we are quickly caught up with the characters' backgrounds with a quick montage of their first 4 years, and then we jump straight into the present day action. So for those of you unfamiliar, we have a family of scientists, astronauts, explorers who gained superpowers due to cosmic radiation. Reed Richards, the smartest man in the world, who can now stretch his body like rubber. Sue Storm, his wife, can turn invisible and project force fields. Johnny Storm, her brother, can turn into flame. And finally, Ben Grimm, their friend and pilot, now has a rock-like body which gives him immense strength and durability. The main conflict of the movie starts when Sue gets pregnant, and shortly afterwards Earth is visited by the Silver Surfer, who warns humanity that its final days are coming and the planet has been marked for destruction. It will soon be consumed by a cosmic being called Galactus, which of course prompts the Fantastic Four to start looking for a solution. So I'll start with what I liked most about the film, which is its production design and the decision to set it in an alternate world. So this isn't actually the main MCU timeline, it is a retro-futuristic version of the 1960s America. I love retrofuturism as an aesthetic, so this was right up my alley. The old-timey clothes and furniture and cars and hairstyles combined with futuristic but still very tactile and analog technology. It felt different, it felt fresh, it felt fun. Love that part. Especially as so many sets and props and just elements of the movie have been built physically. There is a difference in watching that versus just pure CGI. So I like that as well. I like that the movie, more than any of the ones before, on any of the Fantastic Four ones before, really focuses on the family dynamics. The four trust and help and rely on each other. There is some friendly banter between Johnny and Ben, but first and foremost, they really are a family. They also work together very well, especially in the action sequences, and their characterization, individually, is superb. Reed is definitely coded as being on the spectrum, which fits the character on 100%. Sue is the kind of public-facing cornerstone and emotional heart of the family. Johnny was probably my favorite because he's like his comic book counterpart. He's still a bit of a goofball and womanizer, but for the first time in movies, he isn't a complete buffoon and he's actually a competent scientist in his own right. Loved the scene where he figures out how to bounce the laser beams off the wormhole. Also the subplot of him figuring out the alien language. And finally, Ben seems at peace with his changed body for the most part, and he's sort of the voice of calm in the family. So I loved all of that in general. I also liked that the movie is kind of about the family preparing to welcome and take care of a newborn baby, and the whole Galactus thing can really be read as a metaphor for that, for being a new parent. It changes your life completely. It can bring an overwhelming sense of disaster. You can't completely understand or figure it out. You just kind of have to show up and face it best as you can. And even what Franklin does at the end can be read as, the child sort of giving back, giving its parents life meaning. I liked the antagonists of the movie in terms of their design and vibe and how well they match their source material. I like the sense of impending doom related to Galactus and how they didn't make him weak or an easy problem to solve. He does seem completely unstoppable. And considering that, I also like that the humor was largely toned down from the other Marvel movies. There isn't nearly as much quipping, which makes sense when the world is heading for disaster. And finally, I really liked the action sequences. My favorite one was the Act 2 space sequence. The whole thing, really. It was beautifully shot, tense, exciting, well written, many things happening all at once. Just everything you would want from a sci-fi movie. And then also the final act was pretty well written and executed. However, having said that, I did feel that for a movie about a world possibly ending very, very soon, it didn't really bother to go too much into the existential horror of that. There is a fantastic scene where the four come back from space at the end of Act 2 and they have a press conference where they reveal to the world that Galactus offered to spare Earth in exchange for their baby, which sets up, I think, an incredible conflict that for a while seems to be the main thing brewing, with the public turning on their heroes and pressuring them to sacrifice their child for the good of humanity, which, Sue is adamant this is absolutely nothing that they can even think about, whereas Reed, you can see his logical mind at least considering this as a statistical plan. But then all of that is resolved magically with a single speech given by Sue and then sort of never mentioned again. I think that a bolder movie would have leaned into that more, would have become darker in that regard and really explored the terrible kind of Sophie's choice that the heroes are facing. And similarly, I think that the ending does something which seems incredibly bold and unexpected and would have been the biggest emotional gut punch of the movie, except it gets immediately reversed after 5 seconds. And I get that they wanted to introduce Franklin's powers and abilities, but this just felt like it cheapened the ending and the emotional stakes. And so between these two elements, it felt a bit like a movie that in the end plays it safe, that introduces some very heavy philosophical themes but doesn't dare to explore them in a really meaningful way, in depth. Because at the end of the day, it wants to be, first and foremost, a colorful summer blockbuster. And I guess the movie's reception will depend on how fine you are with that. I mostly am. I do regret that the film didn't play to its potential strengths a bit more, but I am happy with what we got anyway. It's kind of similar to Superman in the sense that it leans into the wackiness of its source material. It is unapologetically comic booky and silly at times, but also has its heart in the right place and is strong thematically. I liked it more than I didn't, and I think it's a solid Marvel movie, even if it isn't perfect.